Alrighty, folks, today we're talking about lizards, bugs, guns, and Jesus. Welcome aboard. Rango is a 2011 animated film directed by Gore Verbinski and starring his favorite boy Johnny Depp, playing an anthropomorphic chameleon who's the namesake of the film, or at least becomes the namesake of the film upon finding residence in the tiny western town of Dirt and posing as the vigilante gunslinger Rango. Today I don't want to entirely break down the film, as many other people have done that in a way much more thorough than what I can do. But there is a particular topic that I want to dig into a little bit, as I haven't seen many other people theorizing on it. If I'm mistaken and this idea already exists, please do let me know. But either way, I want to express my take on it. If you haven't seen Rango yet, I do highly recommend it. It's a fantastic film with amazing animation and a unique production style. While most animated films would exclusively record voice actors' lines in recording booths, Verbinski chose to capture the audio and visuals of Rango by having his performers act on stage, allowing the animation team to capture the motion and emotion of the actors more accurately, as if they were really human performers. I do think this adds to the refreshing style of the film significantly. While a lot of animated films do use voice actors for a reference point on how to bring their characters to life, I feel like a lot of movies, especially other talking animal films, tend to present us with more of a overly polished, smoothed over version of those actors' already perfect symmetrical selves, which doesn't do a lot to cue us into the emotion and purpose of their characters. Using 2016 Zootopia as an example, I think Jason Bateman and Ginnifer Goodwin look significantly more like Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps than Johnny Depp and Isla Fisher look like Rango and Beans. But the character design in Rango does so much more to tell us about their characters and immerse us into their world. While both of these movies do feature animals walking on two legs and participating in a human-like society, the characters in Rango manage to feel so much more human, even though they objectively look more like real animals. We as the audience recognize that society can't be so polished and clean, and so in a way it's easier to relate to an anxiety-riddled iguana who freezes up under pressure and an imposter chameleon who doesn't fully understand who he is himself than it is to relate to picture-perfect Disney characters who, while they may have character flaws and less than perfect backstories, don't appear visually to be anything much deeper. Don't get me wrong, I love Disney movies and I think that their characters and stories have a lot to offer, but I think we sometimes forget that animation is a visual art style and not just some way to present a story that could be told through any other medium. And I could go on about the visual styles in this movie and how they really managed to capture the feeling of the desert and how amazing they made that water look. But what I really want to do is talk about the symbols of spirituality throughout this film, and more specifically, the cult-like influences present in the town of Dirt. While watching Rango, there was just a few symbols that really stood out to me that I wanted to dig into deeper, and while the level to which I am going to analyze them may be more coincidental than not, upon rewatching a few of these scenes, I really felt like there was something to it. To start, the first scene shows Rango still as a pet chameleon thrown out of the back of his owner's car in an accident caused by a lone armadillo crossing the street. Interestingly, this armadillo, whose name is Roadkill by the way, starts Rango on his journey in a few ways, both literally by launching him out of the car and pointing him on his way to Dirt, but also metaphorically and spiritually. Rango initially has no purpose in the desert other than survival. He just needs to get to Dirt because he needs water. In fact, the first time I watched the movie, I don't think I ever realized that the town was called Dirt, because the armadillo just says, to find water, you first need to find dirt. And so I thought that was just dirt. This is all directly after Roadkill tells Rango that the path to knowledge is wrought with consequences. And this is a path that at this point Rango doesn't even know he's on himself, but also a path that will eventually lead him to follow Roadkill's spiritual quest to get to the other side, which means the other side of the road in a literal sense, but also metaphorically can be a symbol of death. That's right, we're having fun with this kid's movie. He eventually learns that he is willing to pay this price to discover who he truly is and gain enlightenment, as well as save the town of Dirt. But at this point, he's only really willing to follow Roadkill's advice out of pure need for survival. So that's one symbol for spirituality, Roadkill, the armadillo. More specifically, he's a spiritual leader, and I would add that he is one with pure intent. As you may be able to guess from the whole premise of the video, we are going to be focusing a little bit more on a different leader who has more malicious leadership techniques later on. So the thing that's really going to tie things together here and also provide an otherwise under-examined angle on this analysis is a particular minor character and symbol throughout the film. This is a character with 0 speaking lines, who has limited screen time, but one that I think is very important in understanding this concept and is also a symbol of the spirituality and trust of the more active supporting cast of the film. They have a notable physical connection to our pre-established spiritual leader, being Roadkill the Armadillo, and show up in some massively plot-significant scenes throughout the movie. And this character is, of course, say it with me now, the Pillbugs. Okay, let's start with the obvious physical connection. Armadillo, rollin' ball. Pillbug, rollin' ball. Cool, right? I think so. I also think that this isn't just a coincidence. I think it does say something more about their connection symbolically in the themes of this film. So there's a couple scenes in the movie that I think point to the Pillbugs being a symbol of general spirituality and also influence over the citizens of Dirt. The first one that I want to cover actually comes pretty close to the end of the movie. So obviously, spoiler warning here if you weren't clued into that already. Near the climax of the film, at the height of his identity crisis, Rango leaves the town of Dirt where he was serving as sheriff and makes his way across the desert, returning to the road where he was first thrust out of his life of comfort. He approaches the busy street and without caution crosses to the other side, narrowly avoiding oncoming traffic. This is a very dramatic and beautiful shot to begin with, and it shows Rango making huge steps for himself spiritually. We see here that he's begun to understand the spiritual quest of his eccentric mentor, Roadkill. He's put aside his interest in the waking world and risked his physical well-being to cross the other side of the road, trying to find what he previously only ever knew as metaphorical or potentially non-existent enlightenment. But it's important to note that he doesn't actually achieve that enlightenment on his own. He does everything he can, he gets to the other side of the road, but then he passes out, and a swarm of pillbugs comes and scoops him up and carries him away into the middle of the desert where he meets the Spirit of the West, who is basically old Clint Eastwood with a golf cart. Now, there are already so many religious undertones in this scene. As I said before, the cross to the other side of the road does in many ways symbolize death, with Rango even asking if he was in heaven when meeting with the Spirit of the West in what appeared to be an endless pearly white desert. Additionally, let's take a look at the pillbug's role here. The tiny isopod scooped up Rango after he did all he could, taking him to meet with the Spirit of the West, who is in all ways a godlike figure to Roadkill and the other animals in this film. The pillbugs are allegorically Jesus, and I fully do not believe this to be a stretch in analysis. It's common Christian doctrine that the saving grace of Christ is what allows us to meet God after we do all we can on earth and pass the other side. I'm not here to start any real theological discussions or debates over a children's film from 2011. But just noting that he is meant to make up that difference and allow for us to access enlightenment within that doctrine. And that is literally what is happening in the story. So to just kind of put that little bit of knowledge away and wrap up everything we just went over, the pillbugs, in my perspective here, are just very, very clearly some sort of spiritual symbol based on the way that they're treated and the role that they play in this film. And additionally, the fact that they have a very clear physical similarity to another deeply spiritual character. We see from the beginning of the film that Roadkill is some sort of spiritual leader, defining what the path to enlightenment looks like to Rango and starting him on his journey. But then when Rango follows that pre-established path to enlightenment, it is the pillbugs that pick him up and make up the difference to get him to that goal. So at this point, I don't think it's ridiculous to claim beyond much of a doubt that these characters have some sort of symbolic spiritual significance in the film. I do recognize also that film is art, and being art, its analysis is entirely subjective. I just wanted to firmly establish those views before moving on, as this is my subjective analysis. Here you go. Now, the other scene I want to spend some time on is one of political manipulation and leveraging of spiritual influence as well as physical necessity. And like any situation involving old rich men plotting their continued rise to power over an already desperate lower class, it is centered around one activity in particular: golf. Quick note here. This is quite possibly my favorite scene in the entire film. When I watch it, it really feels like every line has so much weight to it and that they're trying to say something thematically with every bit of it. And I just do not have the time to break that down to that level, especially considering I would basically have to show the entire scene in this video, which I'm not going to do. But let's talk about it. Upon Rango's return from an unsuccessful mission to solve Dirt's drought crisis, the mayor, who is the malicious spiritual / political leader who we're going to be focusing on, takes Rango golfing, along with some of the mayor's most loyal supporters. First of all, this is a clear power move on the mayor's part. He's inviting Rango to discuss issues over a game of golf, a sport that the mayor is very experienced in, while Rango has clearly never played in his life. Participating in an activity that one is very experienced in is an easy way to put oneself in a place of manufactured power over other parties, leaving others to risk becoming flustered or lose sight of the true task at hand. You really don't have to be an expert to put that much together, which is good because I am not an expert. But beyond that, what is actually more important for our purposes is the equipment that they're using. For what appears to just be a fun flavor choice on the part of the creators, they are not golfing here with normal golf balls, but instead with rolled up pill bugs. So we, having done our homework and gone to animated Old West talking animal film Bible study, know that pill bug equal Jesus. Religion. So the mayor is not only discussing his maniacal plots over a game that we already societally know to be associated with white supremacy and classism and sexism, but he's seen symbolically playing with the spirituality of his people. Not only that, he's highly proficient in the game. He's able to manipulate the ball to go wherever he wants it to, just as he's able to manipulate his people to do whatever he wants them to. At one point, Rango tells him he looks like he's mastered the game, at which point the mayor comments that he's been playing it for a long time, a statement both true of golf and the manipulation of the people of Dirt. Now, it would be easy to say that they must be playing with the pill bugs as balls out of necessity. After all, they're in the middle of the desert, they're tiny animals, normal human golf balls would be way too big for them. Logically, there surely can't be any visual indication in this film that there's actually some sort of supply of true-to-life, appropriately sized, normal-looking golf balls, right? Well, nope, that's wrong. There totally is. We see totally normal golf balls in this movie. Not only do we see totally normal golf balls, but we know for a fact that the mayor has access to them. We see them in his own office. Now, the IMDb page actually lists this as a mistake of sorts, a continuity error on the part of the creators, having put golf balls in and then essentially taken them out later on. And that's a real possibility. I'm not entirely denying that, but at least for the purposes of this analysis, I have to firmly disagree with that statement. It might be even more likely if it was just like a stationary set piece, just a prop on the wall that never moved, it was never interacted with. But Rango knocks the balls off the wall. Like, he interacts with them. They're just as much a part of the scene as anything else. We're meant to notice them. And so if we're supposed to know that they're there and notice their presence, that really doesn't seem like a mistake to me, especially in a film like this that's so heavily focused on detail. So from that observation, not only do we learn that the mayor is symbolically playing with the spirituality of those that he controls in this film, but he's intentionally choosing to do so even with other options present. This can also be applied to the literal aspects of the scene and tell us a lot more about the values of the mayor as a character, as we see that he chooses to cause harm to a creature much smaller than him when he plays golf, despite the fact that he has a humane alternative available. Oh, another important thing of note on this, we never actually see Rango hit a pill bug in this scene. It presents as him being very bad at golf, which we have every reason to believe that he is. But it could also just be him having some sympathy for these creatures. So that's neat. The scene culminates with Rango questioning and lightly accusing the mayor before he tips his hat and reveals that a pill bug is up there, not rolled up into a ball, freely moving around and crawling on the brim. This is symbolically showing us that Rango does have the protection of the freedoms of the people of Dirt at heart, letting the symbol of their spirituality and influence freely roam, raised into the air and under the sphere of Rango's protection. I believe that this is the detail that ties this whole scene together. It's not hard to see that the scene is symbolic of the mayor's manipulation of the people in Dirt. In fact, we get a similar vibe just from the cult ritual-esque ceremony that we see him leading when the water is supposed to come. But it's at this point that we get to see Rango show how he has turned his interests outward, initially only coming to Dirt to survive, but finding a role there that he felt he should fill, and eventually learning how to really contribute to help those around him by filling that role. To wrap up, I just want to note that spirituality does go a lot further than just religion, and I think that Rango teaches that message beautifully. Well, I do see it as a spiritual allegory of sorts. I can see how so much of that just comes down to political influence and sense of purpose and personal identity. That I think I just broke it down in this way because it was a framework that I was comfortable with and familiar with, and I saw some behaviors throughout the film that made me think that a religious comparison would serve it well. But let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you have a different interpretation of these symbols? Is there anything that I missed that you think would have helped contribute to this analysis of the themes? I am massively underqualified to do this, and I hope you are too. If you like this, stick around. I'll make more. I'm thinking I've got a series in mind that I want to try to do that might be a massive project. And so if you want to be one of like the 10 people that watch it, we'd love to have you. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.